Hey guys, this is Undercover Dudes all the way from Down Under, and today we're going to be talking about the Chinese release of Counter-Strike Global Offensive and comparing it to the free-to-play Chinese juggernaut of CrossFire. Now, if you haven't heard of CrossFire before, I honestly don't blame you, because CrossFire in the West is a relatively unknown game. However, in China, CrossFire is absolutely massive. It's one of the most played games in that region. Now, for a bit of comparison, everybody knows of League of Legends, right? League of Legends overall last year, 2016, it generated $1.6 billion. But then we go to the second most, earning game, and you'd think, okay, maybe Dota, maybe be Counter-Strike Global Offensive. No, it was neither of those games. It was CrossFire from Smilegate. It came in second at $1.1 billion. The question everybody's asking is, how does CrossFire generate so much money when the West doesn't know about it? And anybody that has gone and played CrossFire will go and say that it is a very bad game. Today, I'm going to go and explain why CrossFire is a bad game, but why the Chinese market loves CrossFire so much. And on top of that, the possibility of the Chinese market shifting the Counter-Strike Global Offensive in some form, dependent on a few factors. First up, let's go and talk about CrossFire. Now, CrossFire is a game that is heavily based off Counter-Strike 1.6, not only in terms of the graphics, which is a telltale sign, but also in terms of the gameplay mechanics, the way your character goes and shoots his gun, the way your character goes and runs around the map, the animations, the particle effects. It all very much has a Counter-Strike 1.6 feel. But this is where the similarities go and end. The reason why is because CrossFire is a fundamentally flawed game, and overall it is a terrible first-person shooter. Now let me go and break it down. In terms of the maps and modes, who really cares to an extent? You have Team Deathmatch, you have Free-For-All, you have Bomb Defuse, you have the Zombie mode, and a ton of other modes. But overall, they really don't go and dilute the experience, they just add extra fluff to the game. In terms of the maps, they really aren't inspired. Most of the Team Deathmatch maps are corridor shooters, not inspired in any way, shape, or form. Very linear, very spammy, takes realistically no skill to go and learn the maps. The bomb defusal maps, however, have a little bit more charm behind them, but they are nothing in comparison to, the genius of Dust 2 and Nuke and so on and so on, and Photo and so on and so on. So in CrossFire, the way you go and play these Team Deathmatch free-for-all modes are extremely aggressive, a very kind of brainless style akin to Call of Duty. However, the bomb defusal has a lot of similarities in the playstyle to Counter-Strike Global Offensive. But the reason why I don't like CrossFire so much is because it's a fundamentally pay-to-win game. If you don't go and put money into CrossFire, and when I mean money, I mean a significant amount of money, $100+, you will be at a significant disadvantage in comparison to everybody else. While the in-game currency weapons in CrossFire are quite usable, in comparison to their paid variants, they are basically pea shooters. So the way the currency model really works in CrossFire is you have in-game currency, and you go and earn that from playing matches and whatever, and you can go and rent weapons from the shop. That is perfectly fine. Now, you can also go and spend real-life money on those exact same weapons in order to go and get them for permanent. I am perfectly fine with that as well. But what I am not okay with is the way CrossFire goes and makes so much money. It sells upgraded variants of these weapons in the shop for real life money. And basically, if you go and put money into this game, you will have an advantage over people that don't. For example, an AK-47 in the shop that you can go and buy for an X amount of dollars, whatever, it will have increased damage, low recoil, and potentially a sight. But on top of that, the way the game goes and makes a ton of money, and potentially the majority of its money, is through gambling. Now, gambling not in terms of Counter-Strike Global Offensive skins, but in terms of cases. Now, these cases go and really contain exclusive variants of these weapons that have incredibly enhanced stats. Basically, game-breaking stats. For example, take the AK-47 I had before. This AK-47 in the case will have higher damage with a suppressor, incredibly higher fire rate, higher accuracy, lower recoil, and attached bayonet. It also have a sight on top of it. These weapons are decked to the nines, and there is a relatively low chance of people going and getting them, but these people will go and spend so much money on these weapons in order to go and obtain them. Another game in the West that is, somewhat known, Combat Arms, goes and runs on basically the same formula. In the West, pay to win is condemned, and any game that is pay to win, a lot of people just simply flock away from it and go and play a more fair game, for example, Counter-Strike Global Offensive or Battlefield or League of Legends or the such. That's the reason why the majority of you guys haven't heard of CrossFire. The reason CrossFire still exists in North America and Europe is the fact that the European player base goes and keeps it afloat. In Europe, especially in countries like Turkey, a lot of people don't especially have the best computers, but they still have, a bit of money laying around, and these games go and exploit these players by just going and giving them, giving the opportunity for these players to just sink in their money and get an advantage. This is the reason why CrossFire is still quote-unquote alive, okay, more like still afloat. And the reason why games like Combat Arms still go and thrive is simply because they're really preying on these players. So CrossFire is a pay-to-win game. It's a terrible game. We've gone and established that. But why is it played in China so much? Well, the overall consensus is the fact that China doesn't really give two shits about pay-to-win. They don't really have a moral confliction about putting money into a game and getting an advantage over somebody else. In fact, it's actually supported. Smilegate, the publisher, goes and milks the gambling of cases in order to go and get rare items so much. It's absolutely incredible. And overall, that's the ideology of the Asian region. When we go and look at South Korea, the most popular free-to-play first-person shooter is called Sudden Attack, and it goes and suffers from the same case. Pay to win is very much supported in that game, and having an advantage is not something that is condemned, it's actually supported. So going back to CrossFire and linking it to the Counter-Strike Global Offensive Chinese release, I don't think a lot of people will just move straight from CrossFire to Counter-Strike Global Offensive on the pure basis that Counter-Strike Global Offensive is a fundamentally better game. The fact that CSGO isn't pay to win, has better mechanics, has better maps, has better modes, has better everything. The whole game is overall incredibly superior to CrossFire. Even that major factor won't be enough for people to go and move from CrossFire to CSGO. The main reason why they will stay is because they enjoy their advantage too much. And that is a really big attributing factor where free-to-play games still exist. They go and get a person's money, and it's kind of like an addiction. The person will keep putting money in, keep getting hooked, and from there it's like, fuck, I've put $500 into this game. Okay, I don't really want to go and play Counter-Strike because I've gone and put so much money. Even though they can realize that CSGO is a better game, they will still go and play CrossFire. But what about the people that haven't gone and put money into CrossFire? What's stopping those people from going and buying Counter-Strike Global Offensive? Well, the thing is that the Chinese gamer market is dominated by video games that are predominantly easy to go and run. It doesn't matter if you have a computer from the early 2000s or if you have a supercomputer. The majority of people go and play games that are easy to go and run. CrossFire, League of Legends, MapleStory, Dungeon Fighter Online. All of these games are really easy to run. And again, linking it back to the Asian market, that is predominantly the attitude. If a game's easy to run, that's where people will go and flock to. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is an easy game to run from our standards, especially because it's released in 2012. You get decently high frame rates, but what makes it incredibly off-putting is the fact that these new maps, the reworked maps, Inferno, Nuke and whatnot, even though these are supposed to be appealing to new players, especially in the Chinese market, they are extremely off-putting because you're not getting max FPS. You won't be going and getting a decent frame rate if you're running a computer from the early 2000s. So with that said, this is a big off-putting factor. The fact that system requirements are basically non-existent with a lot of the popular games means Counter-Strike Global Offensive has to go and push in from a different direction. Another thing that CSGO has against it is the fact that CrossFire is basically dominated by Team Deathmatch and Free-For-All. Bomb Defusal is okay in terms of its popularity, but in comparison to the non-objective modes, it gets completely dwarfed. So saying that when a CrossFire player could potentially go over to Counter-Strike Global Offensive, they would be looking for the team deathmatch modes, they would be looking for arms race and demolition and whatnot, and even though those modes are provided by Valve, the modes that are pushed quite heavily in Counter-Strike Global Offensive is that bomb defusal or hostage through the competitive matchmaking. So with that said, there could be a little bit of rift. Now, this is more of an assumption, painting, with broad strokes. Of course, there would be a lot of people that would crave that competitive experience and would very willingly go and leave Crossfire to go and get that. But saying that, the fact that the majority of people in Crossfire are playing those non-objective modes, and that's the player base that Valve is trying to tap into for this Chinese release, it is, something to go and think about, down the line. At the moment, I can only think of 2 different directions, but down the line, I'll more than likely think up some more, so make sure to go and be subscribed if you don't want to go and miss out on a follow-up commentary. But let's go and talk about the first direction, and that is esports. Now, esports in China is booming. When you have a look at League of Legends, the amount of investment from major companies is extraordinary. The amount of money that players are being offered to come from Korea to China is insane. But the thing is, Crossfire Esports is relatively small. Only $1.8 million of prize pool money has been given out. But compare it to the $31.4 million of prize pool money that has been given out through Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and there is a big difference. Over $29.5 million in fact. So with that said, Crossfire Esports in comparison to CSGO Esports is relatively small. This is something that Valve can go and capitalize on, go and set up a few regional tournaments with some big prize pools, and Crossfire teams will go and move the Counter-Strike Global Offensive simply because it's more, beneficial for their livelihood. They get more money from it, and from there, their fans will go and follow as well. That will only go and bring the esports fans. How do you go and get the rest? Well, sadly, it's through the gambling aspect of Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Now, obviously, gambling in 2 forms. The first way is, the regulated way that Valve does it. Through cases, through keys, where people go and get rare skins and then they can go and sell it on the market. The thing is with Crossfire, when you go and get a skin, the only way to go and give a skin to another person is, by giving them an account. And there is, shady deals, PayPal deals, whatever, where people go and buy accounts. But that is something that is really risky. The fact that Valve could potentially set up a marketplace for CSGO China, and people could go and sell skins, through a relatively regulated method is something that could be appealing to people that are willing to spend a lot of money, and then they can go and turn a profit. Now, of course, the second way of gambling is through the sites, the external third-party sites that go and deposit skins. You turn it into a form of currency. It's a bit of a loophole through, Valve's terms of service and whatnot, and from there you can go and play roulette, crash, and so on and so on. I have no doubt this will be a big market in China, and I have no doubt people are already setting up websites in China for this exact purpose. But saying that, everything in China is more regulated, but the fact that people will go and get around it, will go and bring people, and when people start going and using Counter-Strike Global Offensive as just a medium, normal players will go to Counter-Strike Global Offensive simply because they see big player numbers, and there could potentially be a bit of a shift. That's exactly what happened with Counter-Strike Global Offensive. It was relatively small, but when skins and gambling came in, people flocked to it, and now people go and play the game less because of the gambling, but more because of the actual game. But if it wasn't for the skins and it wasn't for the gambling, this game wouldn't be big. So overall, it's quite interesting, and maybe a bit of deja vu might happen. We've already seen it many years ago with, NA, EU, basically, everywhere that CSGO was published by Valve. But now in China, we might see exactly the same thing, a bit of deja vu, as I said before. And it'll be really interesting to see if that goes and plays out. But other ways that CSGO can go and break in, honestly, I'm not Chinese. I come from Australia. There's only so much analysis of that region that I can do from the perspective of a free-to-play analyst per se. And there's only so much I can go and talk about comparing Crossfire to Counter-Strike, and that is something that really needs to be done. This analysis needs to be done by somebody in the shoes of a person that is really knowledgeable about free-to-play, really knowledgeable about how predominant Crossfire is in China, and then from there they can go and make necessary calculations and whatnot, and hopefully go and turn out a bit of a theory of how CSGO could potentially be popular. But in my opinion, Crossfire will be the main king for quite a long time. This was definitely a bit of a rambling. It was just my thoughts just plastered into microphone form, but it's everything I know about free-to-play, everything I know about the Chinese market, everything I know about Counter-Strike Global Offensive. I linked it together, and hopefully you guys have learnt something about, you know, the CSGO release, because everybody's been focusing on the 128 tick, the Source 2 engine, the panorama, whatnot, and those elements are something that I will definitely go and talk about in future commentaries. But the actual release of CSGO in China is something that a lot of people strayed away from, simply because it's a bit of a grey unknown zone. I wanted to go and shine a bit of light on top of that, and hopefully you guys went and enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to go and lightly press the like button one time. One time would be perfectly fine. Lightly press it. Everybody's saying smash the like button, destroy the like button. I'm gonna go and bring something different. Just lightly press the like button. And with that said, if you did enjoy the video, consider subscribing. But other than that, it's Undercover Dudes all the way from Down Under. Out.